Hi, I'm David Decero, and today I'm going to be going over my top 10 fantasy novels of all time, in my humble opinion. I know there's a bunch of these top 10 lists out there, but I think it's a cool way to see what somebody's taste is like in fantasy novels. Whether that be good, bad, or weird. Mine might be a little weird, just because I'm maybe not as well read as some other booktubers. Like, I haven't read all of the great fantasy novels, and some of them I've just read the first book. Like Malazan, I've only read Gardens of the Moon. And for The Wheel of Time, I've only read Eye of the World. There's a lot I still need to get around to. So my list might be a little different, and you're like, okay, let me skip to number 1 and see how different he really is. Don't do that, but, it's a little different. I hope you stick around and see, what I like, and see maybe if it's what you like too. But yeah, anyways, let's begin. All right, so coming in at number 10, we have Demons, Inc. by Clayton Snyder. Now, you might say to yourself, how could that make this list? And to that I say, you haven't read it. It's actually a great fantasy novel. I don't know if you have or not, but I feel like I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this one, and I would like to see a lot more talk about this one. But basically the premise is, we have our protagonist Jack, who is somebody who's just frustrated and done with life. He's jaded, and he has tattoos that are filled with demons. And he doesn't really want to be a hero, but he hears about a little girl getting kidnapped, and so he's on the case. And that's where our adventure takes off. This book is filled with sarcasm, really, really funny sarcasm. I was laughing out loud several times. There's a lot of heart. There's some good hard-hitting emotional scenes, but a lot of just cool magic stuff. Like, Clayton Snyder really just tries some things, and he makes good use of it being a fantasy novel. And sure, it's an urban fantasy, but there's plenty of cool magic stuff. As somebody who works 7 days a week and is raising 2 teenagers, I can relate to how tired this man is. Like, he just seems like a cool guy to get a beer with, and, he would get it. He would get the frustrations of the struggles of life. Like, he would just get it. And the funny thing is, this is probably not even Clayton Snyder's best book, or even the best book of his that I've read. Like, he teamed up with Mike Fletcher to make Norleska Groans, and that one, probably a better story overall. But this one, I don't know, just as a personal favorite. Like, it's so rereadable and fun in a weird way. But I feel like I connect more with this story. It's so rereadable and just a good time. Now, number 9, I need to sit down. I'm kind of tired. I'm going to sit down. Now, coming in at number 9, we have Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. What if John Wick was a mom in a fantasy setting? That's what this feels like. This book features monsters, magic, and mayhem. Really, all a fantasy fan can ask for, I think. I mean, the cover of the first book alone made me throw my entire TBR out the window and was like, all right, that next. Has a big, cool dragon. Good. Let's go. Good dragon time. But the world building is incredible. And again, this is an author that takes full advantage of this being a fantasy setting and has cool magic stuff. I read this with a group of friends, and we all seem to enjoy it, so maybe you will too. If you're looking for a fantasy novel with a great sense of adventure, then this would probably satisfy that want. All right, coming in at number 8, we have The Way of Kings. And really, the Stormlight Archive as a whole, but I'm only 2 books in with The Way of Kings, and I'm reading through Words of Radiance right now. Not finished with it, but The Way of Kings left me emotionally wrecked. It was an incredible story. The Sanderlanche is so real. And then Words of Radiance just seems to be even better. Like, the quality and the tension and excitement and just everything is just getting ramped up even more. Now, I don't know if he'll be able to keep that up for the entire series. Each book is like 1,000 pages long, and I know the last one, Wind and Truth, that just came out recently, has gotten mixed reviews. So, Words of Radiance, from what I understand, might be the best one of the series. But I'm really enjoying it, and it's been incredible so far, and even if it's just these 2 books, for me, that's top 10 worthy. Incredible run so far. If you haven't read it, what's the premise here? Kaladin is somebody who feels like he lets all the people around him down over and over again, and everything is his fault, and he kind of has to find a will to keep going and keep pushing through and realize that, yeah, bad things are going to happen, and he's not in control of everything, but that doesn't mean he should just give up. And then we have Shallan, who is trying to steal something to help her family. Then we have Dalinar, who's a general, basically, who has these visions and he can't tell what they mean, and he's trying to figure that out while also being a leader and trying to figure out if he's going crazy or not. And as these characters go on their journey and try to figure things out, you get the sense that an enemy is coming. And I'll leave it at that if you haven't read it already. A lot of people say you should read Mistborn first, and maybe that's the good way to go. I jumped right into the Way of Kings. I don't know, I felt like I'm not missing anything. I read Mistborn several years earlier. I listened to the audiobook, which I don't always pay attention to audiobooks, so I feel like I probably missed some stuff, but it doesn't feel totally necessary. I feel like you could jump right into the Stormlight Archive. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Coming in at number 7, we have The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. This one reminds me of, like, what if Rocky was in a fantasy setting? The story's an African-inspired fantasy, and the main character, Tao, he's just trying to live his life and escape from this country that's just constantly at war, and he wants to get out of there, get away from it all. And then something bad happens, as things typically do in fantasy novels, and his story takes off, and he basically wants to fight one of the greatest fighters in the world at the time. He wants to fight and defeat him, so he has to train. In this book, there's a lot of rage, not a lot of dragons, but they are there. As the humans are fighting, there's also another layer of conflict that there's basically a demon realm that is also fighting the humans, and so I love stories where you have more than one enemy. It's not just two sides going at it. It's not just two sides attacking each other, or one enemy you have to worry about. It's, okay, yeah, there's people fighting, then there's some great big other thing coming to destroy everybody, and maybe they have to unite. Maybe they destroy each other and they're super weak and the other thing comes and just kills everybody. I don't know, but that kind of stuff is exciting. All right, coming in at number 6, we have the Mercy Thompson novels. So, the premise here is basically Mercy Thompson is a shape-shifting coyote who was raised by a pack of werewolves, and she likes to solve mysteries, magical mysteries. And I want to say there's like 10 books now in the series. I've read about 6 of them, and I love them. I think they're great. They have mystery, they have a bit of romance, tons of magic. It's not just your typical like vampires and werewolves. You also have other fae magical creatures and beings and things like that. And man, I think in the second book has one of the creepiest scenes out of any fantasy novel I've ever seen. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to say anything more about that. But basically, yeah, every book is its own self-contained mystery. You can read them separately if you want, but there are friendships and relationships that go throughout the entire series. When I tell people this, they always tell me, okay, you got to read the Dresden Files. I will read those at some point, because it sounds like a very similar concept as far as like magical mysteries, every book, and a cool protagonist. I like Mercy Thompson because as a shape-shifting coyote, she's not very strong, and she has to figure out and navigate how to take down much stronger, magically powerful opponents. And there's a big theme of like pack magic, since she was raised by the werewolves and the whole werewolf hierarchy and stuff like that. I find to be really cool and interesting. I'm a big fan of vampires and werewolves anyways, and this scratches that itch. Coming in at number 5, we have The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. Now, also the First Law trilogy, just as a whole. The Blade Itself is basically like if The Lord of the Rings was directed by Quentin Tarantino. Like that's the vibe, you know, just spending a lot of time with characters, getting to know them. Stuff doesn't even really need to happen because the characters are so interesting. They could have a picnic, and I would want to read about it. This is a book series that subverts a bunch of fantasy tropes, and you could tell, like, it's very obvious what they're doing, and it just works, and it's really funny. That was probably one of the bigger things I did not expect, was how funny Joe Abercrombie is. And he just sneaks in humor, and never at the wrong moment. It's not like there's a really emotional part and there's like some joke where he's like, oh man, he's right behind me, isn't he? Like, they don't do that kind of, it's good. It's good humor. And there's plenty of action, and it's definitely a grimdark novel. Logan Ninefingers, one of the coolest main characters you could have in a fantasy novel. One of my favorites for sure. As you can tell, I really like dark fantasy, grimdark stories where the hero will do absolutely whatever it takes to win. And, with a dash of sarcasm and violence and magic. Sarcasm, violence, and magic. You mix those up, I'll probably love that story. Maybe you're the same. I don't know. If you are, you should probably subscribe, though. Just saying. All right, coming in at number 4, we have The Warded Man by Peter V. Brett, also the Demon Cycle series as a whole. Incredible series. The Warded Man by itself, one of my favorite fantasy novels ever. I think books 1 through 4 are all great. Book 5, the 5th and final book of this arc, there's a later book series that's also connected. I haven't read that one yet, but in this arc, the 5th book feels really predictable. You'll probably be reading and be like, all right, that's going to happen, and it does. That's going to happen. Okay, this is how it's going to end. Yeah, okay. And it's just, endings are so tough. But Peter V. Brett does a great job of creating characters you will love, characters you will hate, and ramps up the tension at all the right parts. And again, a story with plenty of magic. The premise of the Demon Cycle series is basically our protagonist, Arlen Bales, grows up in a small town where at night, as soon as the sun goes down, demons rise up out of the ground, and the only way to survive is to paint wards on your property to keep them off. So everybody hides behind their wards at night, and then Arlen grows up and is like, there's got to be a way to fight back. And that's kind of where the journey takes off, because he wants to find a way to fight back. And then you jump around to other perspectives, and you see other people in the world trying different things, and eventually everybody comes together, and there's plenty of action and battles, and there's plenty of politics and human drama, as well as fighting the demons. Once again, it's people versus people, plus another thing coming down to fight everybody. And he's just an incredible writer. There's so many emotional, hard-hitting scenes in this series. That's what makes it one of my favorite of all time. Highly recommend. All right, coming in at number 3, The Prince of Thorns, also known as the Broken Empire trilogy. Jorg Ancrath is an unhinged, violent genius, and when the world is a terrible place filled with terrible people, he's the hero you need. Now, there's a weird little typo. So there's one weird little typo in The Prince of Thorns, so all you have to do is go to like page 7, okay? Just go to page 7, right? And then just tear that out, and then boom. And now you could read it and have absolutely no problem rooting for Jorg Ancrath. He's a little evil, but you can still cheer for him, Now, Jorg is the kind of character that will just out-violence most people, places, and things he comes in contact with. But this world is so messed up, and there's so many just bad and terrible people, it makes it a little easier to root for him. And in most stories, he'd be the villain, for sure. But in this story, I think he's the hero they need in this world. Mark Lawrence, this is the first book he wrote, and he even said it himself. He was in a dark place when he wrote this, and so there's venom in these words, and you can feel it. It's probably, I feel like, the most emotional Mark Lawrence book that I've read. Now, as his books have went on, and he's made a bunch of other series, his writing, I feel like, has gotten better, but I feel like nothing has been as emotional or gritty as this one. And that's why it's one of my favorite of all time, and highly rereadable. All right, number 2, A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. Now, I know the book series is not finished. It may never be finished. That being said, I feel like he's already done enough to establish himself as the greatest fantasy author of his generation, at least that I've read. I couldn't name a better one. His ability to put together a scene is just incredible. I feel like chapter by chapter, you go through these books, and I feel like so many chapters start off with like seemingly random characters in a random place. Like he just throws darts at like these guys over on this part of the map, and I'll write something about that. And you go, why do I care? Why would I care about these people at all? I want to know about the other stuff. By the end of the chapter, you're like, oh my god, all I care about is these characters in this place. And then you jump to another location, and it's the same thing all over, and just banger after banger, just so many great chapters, back to back to back, and just a bunch of books of that, nonstop. I read the first book years ago, but sometimes, every once in a while, I will still just pick up the first book and reread the first chapter because I'm like, that's how you start off a series. That's how you start a fantasy novel. You set the stage of this ominous force that's coming, and the people have to prepare. But again, the people are busy fighting the people, and then eventually this other thing will come and attack them, and that always works. I don't know. That just always works for me every single time. And these characters are so well developed. There's so many different characters that you'll love, that you hate, and then sometimes you love the characters that you hate. And that's, as an author, to do that to your readers is just, I don't know, it's incredible. It's great. It's just a fantastic series. The world building and the history behind it. I mean, Tolkien, Sanderson, maybe the only ones that are comparable, you know. I don't know too many fantasy authors that have a history book for their stories that's like good enough for people to buy and just read on its own. You know, Tolkien had the Silmarillion, and George R. R. Martin has the History of Westeros. Brandon Sanderson should come out with a similar. I feel like he could do it. But outside of those three, I don't know of any others. Even on a sentence-by-sentence basis, just one of the best writers out there. And man, I know it's already been said, but I would really like if he finishes the book. The Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring. I can't wait to read the final two books when those come out. You know? Yeah? Okay. All right. If the story does finish, what he's done as far as what the story looks like it's going to be and what the story becomes is something I haven't seen before. You know, you think, here's the good guys and the bad guys, and then within that, or then as the story unfolds, you see it's actually like, oh, here's maybe the protagonist, and here's maybe the antagonist. And again, I don't know how it ends, so I don't know if it's actually going to do the thing that, you know, they do in the show, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, coming in at number 1. I told you this is going to be a little different. It's Twilight by Stephanie Meyer. And yeah, these stories get a ton of hate. And maybe the dialogue's bad. And there's some weird, creepy moments, like the shapeshifter imprinting on the unborn fetus. That's weird. Or the 117-year-old vampire that watches the 17-year-old sleep. Again, that's weird. There's a lot of problems with this story, for sure. It's not perfect by any means. But it does have redeeming qualities. Just the escapism. I think anybody who maybe would like to relive high school in a much different way, maybe high school sucked for you, it kind of did for me, but to redo it in the Pacific Northwest, in a small town, and in a storyline where maybe you live forever, that's kind of cool. I think that's a cool story to escape into. Just the escapism and the whole vampires and werewolves, even though they're technically shapeshifters, not werewolves. But still, there's enough supernatural stuff going on to bring something else to this story. Yeah, it's a romance for sure. But I like that. I think that's cool. And so yeah, I really enjoyed the books and movies. Now, is it actually number 1? No, of course not. But the real number 1 is Lord of the Rings, of course, by Tolkien. It's everybody's number 1, because it has to be. I mean, and it's not even because, it's not like I'm giving it the number 1 spot because of it just should be there. Like, for me, my personal connection to it was, I read it when I was 17. And I know the movies came out when I was in like middle school, and I didn't actually read the books until 17. I was in a dark place, and Gondor was my beacon of light in a dark place. You know, it's filled with good role models, Aragorn and Sam and Gandalf and Frodo, and these are like good men, good examples of how to be a good man. And as much as I like my heroes to be grimdark and edgy and violent and all that stuff, I still really enjoy the pure of heart, just good guy, just straight up good guy. And that just goes out there, wants to defeat evil and make the world a better place. Like, man, I feel like there's some books, like, especially with the grimdark and horror, that are better suited to, you know, late night with a glass of wine, some good music in the background. That's the best way to read it. For Lord of the Rings, I feel like you should, on a sunny day, go out into a field, put out like a picnic and sit by a tree and just throw your phone into the garbage and have no electronics and just sit with the words for a while. Tolkien had such control of the English language and just sentence by sentence, one of the greatest to ever do it. You could just like, even now, I'll pick up Lord of the Rings every once in a while and just read a few sentences to be like, damn, this is just, it's just great and sounds good. You read it out loud, it sounds like poetry. Like, it's beautifully written. Yeah, he describes trees for like 10 pages at one point. The pace is super slow, but it's still enjoyable. If you make the time for it and you're in the right headspace and you can, just really sit back and enjoy it. But yeah, I know, it's most people's answer, but I can't put anything above it. Just can't do it. All right, well, thanks for sticking around. Let me know in the comments below, what are your top 10 favorite fantasy novels of all time? What do I need to check out next? I know my reading list, this year I definitely want to get to Red Rising. I want to get to Dungeon Crawler Carl, and a few others that I can't remember right now. But yeah, if you like fantasy books, and you like fantasy memes, that's a lot of what I do here on the channel, then subscribe, and I'll see you next time.